All right, I have a very special guest this week on Ribs Real Estate and Rambling, brought to you by Cooper's Old Time Pit Barbecue and Bach Realty Group. We're right here off the bypass, Cooper's Old Time Pit Barbecue in Aggie Land. You've got to come by and grab some barbecue. It's fantastic. The sides are out of this world. So when you get a chance, you're in Aggie Land, make sure you stop by Cooper's. I have Dr. R. Bowen Loftin with me today, and he's the 22nd Chancellor of Missouri, and he was the 24th President of Texas A&M. And I looked, and with my guests, I always look things up, try to do a little deep
do your
dive.
homework.
So
yeah.
I got to do a little homework. And I laughed about it because obviously your presence here in Aggie Land as president and then just, as a chancellor of a major university. And when you Google you come up as American physicist. So the first thing they talk about is you being a physics guy. And I want to start with a story that you told me once, and I don't know if you told a whole lot of people, or maybe you have, and maybe all of y'all have already heard this, and you're just going to tune me out. I don't know. But you got your undergrad from Texas A&M, and you got it in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And if memory serves, there was a reason that you did it in 3 years.
The reason was this. Money was tight. Mm-hmm. I had a scholarship, but still getting out was important. Going back to when I was 16, Roy, I had an epiphany one day. I mean, who knows what happened exactly, but something caused me to think about my future. I decided I'm going to be a college prof. That's what I wanted to do.
At 16 years old?
At 16 years. So I looked into it. I mean, no internet, so I had to go to the library and look things up.
You had to go look into it.
And I realized that I had to get an advanced degree, needed a doctorate degree. I needed to go to good schools. I needed to make good grades. Okay, that was kind of the things I had to do. So I came to A&M at a time when we just gotten past the era of all men and all corps, and we gotten to the point of having women here in very small numbers, and the corps was no longer mandatory.
Right.
And I looked into that. The corps wasn't in any way negative to me, but I knew I couldn't get out quickly in the Corps Cadets. And also, those days, unlike today, the Corps did not regard grades as an important part of your college education.
Dude. Yeah, back in the day, my dad's class 66, so I know some of these stories. Your education in the Corps was on the quad. It wasn't in the classroom.
You're exactly right. I knew that. And had I not had a future beyond A&M already charted out, I'd have been in the Corps, no question about it. I'd have enjoyed it. As much as one can with a good piss head. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that.
It's YouTube. You can say whatever you want to.
But so I elected not to be in the Corps Cadets. I took an easy major, physics. I took about 20 hours a semester, which is a little more than we take these days on the average.
Yeah, 12 hours is a full-time student. 12 hours is not a full-time student. If you're taking 12 hours a semester, you're going to be here for 5.5 years, and you're going to have so much free time that you're not going to study. Yeah. So then you'll be here 7 years.
You understand.
Now, and correct me on this one, back then you didn't pay per hour, you paid by the semester. Is that correct? Or
yes,
was it by
the tuition, I hate to say this in this current day, but tuition was $50 a semester, unlimited number of hours you could take.
I think I had a textbook that was almost $50 once.
There were textbooks today cost $250, $300. In accounting and things like that, they're incredibly expensive.
Business, law.
But I never paid more than $100 a semester of tuition, fees, and books all together.
Wow.
Losing $90 to $100 right on that level right there. Now that's way beyond what you see today.
And 6 semesters is what you had money for.
Yeah, so I had that, and I had a scholarship paying all those costs from me, but getting out was important in terms of just making my way. My family was not well supported financially, and so I had to have income. In fact, when I got out of high school, I almost didn't go to A&M for a year. Oh. I told my dad I had better work for a year, save my dollars, and get the money in place to be able to afford to go to school.
Well, you're a good old boy from Hearn.
Well, I was born in Hearn, but that was a one-day affair.
Really?
The truth is I was conceived in Hearn.
Zoinks.
I hope this is not an adult, I hope it's an adult show. Okay?
No, it's YouTube. You can say whatever you want to.
But I was conceived in Hearn. My dad was a employee of what now we call TxDOT.
Okay.
It was called the Highway Department in those days. He ran a thing called a drag line, which has long since gone away, and backhoes have taken the place of that. But he had one machine for the whole district. He was moved around.
Oh, okay.
So every few months, my mom and he moved. Well, she got pregnant with me in Hearn, Texas. And he asked his boss, can I have now a permanent place to live to raise a family? So when she was 6 months along, he was transferred to Navasota. And that's where she was when she went into labor.
Oh, okay.
She called her doctor and said, what do I do? He said, how far apart are your contractions? He said, no problem. Have your husband drive you to Hearn. I was born in Hearn Hospital.
Oh, that's hilarious.
A day later, I was moved to Navasota. So the birth certificate says Hearn, Texas on it. I'm in Robertson County courthouse records, but I grew up,
in Navasota,
except for my very first day of life, in Navasota, Texas. So that's my hometown, but the official record is I was born in Hearn, Texas.
That's fine.
Long story, but you should hear it anyway.
That's fine. And so in 3 years, you get your physics degree from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Did you have a minor?
No. I in a sense I did. I didn't have an official minor, but mathematics was automatically enough hours for a minor. And actually what happened then, I was in the very year when I was graduating in 1970, class of 71, that was the year we had the first draft lottery.
Oh.
And so in the early part of 1970, the draft lottery occurred. And I was going to see what my number was. If my number bid a low number, I was going to stay one more year at A&M and get 2 degrees, one in math and one in physics.
Right.
But my number was 356 out of 365, so I wasn't going to get drafted. So I went to grad school, because grad school didn't give you deferment. In grad school, if you went there, I was 1A.
Right.
And I was draftable, but never got drafted. But I had a low number, I'd have stayed one more year at A&M, got my bachelor's degree in 2 cases, two areas,
degrees.
and then probably get drafted and go to the Army
yeah.
and do my thing in Vietnam, which was a hot topic at the time. You may know.
Oh, no, absolutely. And so you go to Rice and you get your master's, you get your doctorate. Now, and you got your postgrad degrees in physics, but did you also get a degree in philosophy?
Well, no. What you do is, in most subjects, you get what's called a PhD,
Right.
which is Doctor of Philosophy, but it's in a topic.
Okay.
It could be philosophy, but mine is.
I saw a website and it said that you got a PhD in philosophy. I was like, I didn't remember hearing that.
Again, somebody misinterprets things occasionally and says Doctor of Philosophy means that philosophy degree.
It's also
it could mean that, but it's unlikely.
It's the internet, so you take it with a grain of salt,
Exactly my point.
And we talked about this before we got going. You taught. You were tenure professor at University of Houston. You gained tenure at one point, but you also worked for NASA.
Well, fairly been about 10 years into my time at U of H, I applied for what's called a summer faculty fellowship, which NASA and other agencies like NASA, NIH does it, things like that. And I got picked, and I chose to go to NASA Johnson Space Center because I had kids, I was living there, it was easy to do that. I could commute easily every day down there. So for one summer, I was obligated to be at NASA every day during the week and doing research they asked me to do. So it was great. I made some good friends there. They liked what I was doing, and so they funded me beyond that. So beginning after that summer, I was funded during the academic year by NASA to buy out part of my time from teaching and things like that to be able to do the research.
So
I get involved very heavily. My students from university come with me up there. They get involved in my research. They get jobs when they graduate in NASA, things like that. So it was good all the way around.
Yeah.
But one quick story. So the guy that actually approved my coming to NASA and asked for me to come there told me he'd had 100 applications, threw them all in the trash can. And he was going to dump his trash can and saw mine poking out and saw one little piece of it that said I had a degree from Texas A&M. So he pulled it out of the trash can, and I got picked.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Now that's his story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll
We're going to take that at face value. Absolutely. That's a fantastic story.
This guy worked for NASA and the government for 55 years. I went to his retirement party. 4 years in the Air Force, 51 at Johnson Space Center. He came here before they built the center down there and was on the Gulf Freeway office there with the very first cadre of people hired by NASA to staff the Space Center here in Houston.
I've done
I was there until just a few years ago.
I've done some really cool things in life. I've had an opportunity to do some really exciting things, and I know it doesn't matter how old I get. Every time I go down to NASA, I'm like a total child. And I still go down to NASA. I grew up outside of Houston, grew up going to NASA and Battleship, Texas, and all that stuff out there. I'll still go to NASA randomly just because I'm fascinated by that stuff.
It's a neat place, and some good people, very good people work there. We've had some NASA people who were Aggies, and Aaron Cohen, for example, was center director while I was working out there. A great Aggie. He came back here to teach when he retired.
Oh, wow.
And this is the guy who was chief engineer for the space shuttle. So having him be your teacher, can you imagine what it would do for somebody?
Well, and not to turn this into commercial for Texas A&M, but that's the kind of faculty we hire.
And I'm that kind of guy too. I'm an Aggie, okay? I can't help it.
I wanted to touch on one more thing on NASA before we move on. And you won some awards while you were at NASA. You won the Space Act Award, the Public Service Medal, and then you won Invention of the Year. And I couldn't find what it was that you invented to win. Like, he didn't just win Invention of the Year for Hasbro, or like he won a competition. This is Invention of the Year for NASA. So, what'd you invent?
I kind of peaked at one point, but anyway.
And don't tell me Ep9 dispensers.
When I went there, I was specifically picked to work in an area called artificial intelligence, which is now kind of a buzzword with ChatGPT and things like
completely
that.
normal, absolutely.
So there was a group called the AI section of NASA, and the guy I mentioned a moment ago was the head of that group, named Bob Saban.
Well, and this is cutting edge at this point, right?
It was. And so what we conceived together was I would develop a training system based on AI. So I would try to replicate the expertise of an expert who taught novices their task. In particular, what we picked was a job in the control center at NASA, which deals with the orbital mechanics, where the spacecraft is basically in orbit around the Earth. And that group learned their job by just sitting behind an expert and watching them for a year or two, and then they became that. So that's a long time. And so the idea was, can we truncate that time of just learning the task by just purely watching somebody do it, by building an artificial intelligence system to train you and teach you all the pieces of that. So we spent months and months, interviewing the experts themselves. How do you do your job? Kind of peeling away the layers of the onion, because you don't know how you do something. If I ask you how to drive a car, what would you say? How far do you go down that tree to get to the point of all the details you have to engage with there? So the idea was to find out what really it took to do this job and encode that in software that could be used for hundreds of people, not just one person at a time, to teach them the job. And it worked. And we got a patent on that, which became the NASA Invention of the Year. Sorry for the long story here, but get a little background out of that.
No, that's fantastic. He lost me, so hopefully he didn't lose you. I understand, and then he went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I think I have clear fluid coming out of my ear at this point. So one last topic I want to touch on, and then we'll wrap it up, maybe two. But one, I saw that at the time you were CEO, and you had two titles at Texas A&M Galveston. You were CEO and
well, Galveston has had a lot of different titles for the guy leading the campus there. It's been president, dean, provost, you name it. When I got there, the title happened to be vice president here in College Station. Okay. Hence, my boss was a guy named Robert Gates, the president.
Right.
And I was CEO of the campus.
Okay.
The current leader there, who's an astronaut, by the way, named Mike Fossum.
Mike Fossum, yeah.
A guy you ought to get on this show sometime. Mike is the COO and a vice president here. So he has the same VP title here.
They just keep changing
but
the name.
He's a COO, not a CEO. But that name has bounced all over the market in terms of what you call that person.
Well, so I asked you about Tamu Galveston to ask you this. You were there during Hurricane Ike in '08. And for those of y'all that don't know this story, that you had to evacuate the campus, faculty, staff, family, everything, and you got it evacuated up here, correct?
Exactly. At that time, when I got there, I figured out we didn't have a business continuity plan at the Galveston campus. We had plenty of plans for deciding to evacuate, checking everything on campus you could leave and what you could take away. That was all well done and well greased in terms of being used a lot, but nobody had ever set down a plan of how to keep the place operational in spite of the damage a hurricane might cause. So I spent 6 months with a team of 60 people, 30 from here in College Station, 30 from down in Galveston, making a plan. Robert Gates authorized all that. By the time the hurricane happened that you're talking about, Hurricane Ike, Gates was gone, Elsa Morano was the president. So after I saw we couldn't resume classes within 2 weeks, which was our guidance basically, I called her and said, we got to execute the plan. And the plan was to move people here. So we moved about 1,500 students here to this campus. We moved as many faculty as needed housing here as well. We occupied the old Plaza Hotel there at the corner of Texas University, which is long gone. We had people 3 to the dorm. If they were fishing the Corps, there were 3 to the dorm room. Wow. John Alstein took care of that for us. And we had faculty opening houses for people. We did everything we could to squeeze in that many people in the second week of classes, by the way.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story.
It was an amazing thing.
Well, and it's kind of, I mean, there's not a ton to compare it to. It's really kind of known as the first time really in the history of a university that anything's ever had to be a full-blown evacuation and to oversee that. I thought that was...
We lost 9 class days, sir. We lost 9 days of class. That's all we lost.
I thought that
That was an incredible feat. I can't claim credit. We had an extraordinary team of people from College Station campus and Galveston campus who worked night and day. I didn't sleep for a month. I literally didn't sleep for a month. I got sick. I mean, I had to go to the hospital because I got so sick from, I had all kinds of problems with my skin and things like that, all because of stress.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing time, but the point is we kept people in school and we graduated 105 new Aggies that December. I wouldn't have graduated then without that particular move. That's kept everybody on track. It was probably, I'm prouder of that than anything else, but I didn't do it. This was done by so many people, and so many students suffered so much because they were just uprooted in the second week classes and moved here. You can imagine what a fish had to go through to just get down there and get situated. All of a sudden, they're uprooted and moved up to College Station.
Get resituated. Well, actually, I don't want to imagine.
No, it was an extraordinary situation in every way you can measure it.
That's fantastic. Okay, before I wrap up, I ask all my guests one question.
Chick-fil-A, well, we got to talk about that. You and me.
Let me for another one.
Okay, another time, okay.
So I ask everybody one question, because it's ribs, real estate, and ramblings, right? If you have to cook, you've got, you're just your friends, your dearest friends, you're bringing them over for a barbecue, and you've got to make ribs, what's your go-to recipe?
Well, I have a big green egg.
We've got somebody that did ribs. Okay,
so,
unbelievable.
I do my baby backs on that. I get 2 racks at a time. I have a rub that's commercial, so I won't necessarily mention it here, but it's a commercial rub that you can get. But I do a mustard coating, put the rub on. They stay in the fridge overnight.
Membrane on or off?
What's that?
Membrane on or off?
Membrane off.
Okay.
And then I put them on the egg for smoking, usually for about 4 or 5 hours, till the internals get about to 160 or so. And then I put take the convector out and put them on the rack directly and get them up, get a little bit of crust on the outside then with that. And my wife had some last night and she was bragging on me again, which is a rare moment for me.
The man can do it all, and he does it all with a bow tie, just literally to wrap up the amazing human being that Dr. Loftin is. I don't know if you have any local charities you're working with or any events coming up, or you just want to talk about your book. I'm going to give you about 15 to 30 seconds. Okay. Look straight in the camera and let them know.
I'm on the board of the Museum of Natural History here in town. We love people to come out there. It's educational. It's a great place for kids and families to come to. Come to that. It's at the Brazos Center, Briarcrest, and Highway 6 bypass, roughly. I'm on the board of United Way of the Brazos Valley. I was there yesterday for a board meeting. We need people to support the United Way, which in turn supports almost 30 charities here in the area that take care of people with all kinds of issues. It's a great, great charity. So I would urge you to look at those 2 particular charities I work with directly and give them what support you can.
Well, and like we said in other episodes, is what makes this community so special is that how much we like to help our community, and the people in the Brazos Valley I think they're special. That's why I'm doing this. And so I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, Dr.
My
Loftin.
pleasure.
This is one of my absolute favorites. This is probably the most loved university president I've ever even heard of, seen, much less with my own 2 eyes. All the students absolutely loved him while he was here at Texas A&M. You did so right by the students. You did so much for the students at Texas A&M. So for that, I'm personally thankful, because anything that's great for Texas A&M makes my heart warm.
That's why A&M exists, is for its students, in my opinion.
This is true. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you so much again.
Thank you, my
appreciate
friend.
it as always. That's going to be it for this episode here at Cooper's Barbecue. Thank y'all for stopping by, and we will see y'all next time.
Thank you.